I am a hospice chaplain, and on Monday mornings, 8 o'clock, I have breakfast with some really, really smart guys. 3 PhDs in physics, and a good friend of mine, he's Dr. Mitch Leister, he's a psychiatrist, one of my best friends, and then a hospice chaplain. And we talk about consciousness, we talk about the chi, we talk about the soul, and how those intersect with physics. Last Monday, they were telling me about a brand new computer that is being built in France. $1 billion has already been funded for it. Can't imagine that much money for a computer, and the whole point of the computer is to simulate humans. And when I asked them to explain, simulate humanity, what do you mean? They said, just like when you're a baby, and you start to take in all the different stimuli, the lights, the things you hear, the taste, the smells, the feels, and that's all just bombarding our brains, but suddenly we start to put them all together into our world. And he said the computer's going to be doing that. There are going to be people programming all these things like colors and sounds, and the point of the computer is to tell a story of what it's like to be human. I said, that's where science and storytelling and the work I do intersect. I thought that was really cool because it is what I'm going to be talking about. I love stories. I love the story of my ancestors. I'm a Frisian, which comes from North Europe, right where Holland and Germany meet. We're fierce, we're stiff-headed. My name is Alsum because the Romans wanted to call us bitter. It's related to the word Alum. And we were mound builders. Our whole village has built a big mound, and we lived on these, my ancestors. In 754, we had a missionary come and knock at our door. I think he was trying to sell us a magazine. You want the watchtower? No, you want the guard tower? Okay, we got to not offend our crowd. And my beloved pagan ancestors, people loved the earth and worshipped various gods and goddesses. They decided they would have this man named Boniface. Boniface is the European version of St. Patrick. And they had him for lunch. Literally, they ate him. So I always tell my Catholic colleagues I got the blood of St. Boniface in me, so be careful. And I love the story of my grandfather. He was a boy of only one when they immigrated from Holland. And they moved to South Dakota. My great-grandfather started a general store there, right at the end of the cattle runs. Come August, all the cattle were coming up from Texas, Oklahoma. And my grandfather said we had to keep only 4 things in the store then. Because all these cowboys had been on the trail all summer long, and all they wanted was beer. That makes sense. Sardines. Soda crackers, saltine crackers, and canned peaches. He said as long as we had that on store, not only would we not get the building knocked down, but we made some pretty good profits. Well, they ended up moving to Colorado shortly after that, around about 1910. My great-grandmother had tuberculosis. And both my families came from various parts of the country because of tuberculosis. I don't have it. I'm not contagious. I get tested at Pikes Peak Hospice at least once a year, but don't worry. Some of my favorite memories, some of my great memories are me and my brother Jim. He's 2 years older than me, and we always said that we were twins born 2 years apart. Just understood each other, and we used to share a bedroom. And I loved that as a kid, our flannel pajamas on, and Mom and Dad would turn off the light, and then we'd sneak into each other's bed at night and tell each other stories. We always talked about camping. Most of our stories were about camping. Some bicycle riding, usually camping. We didn't like hunting. I know that animals sometimes win. So we always talked about camping. I got older, I came to love stories more and more and more. When I graduated from high school in Denver, I went off to college in Michigan to study geology. because I love the story of the earth. I grew up in Colorado, all these formations. What's the story behind those formations? What are these structures I see? How did these come to be? And I was eager to hear the story of the earth, how it continues to unfold, as well as how it has come to be folded and folded again, and inclined and synclined and anticlined and all that good stuff. But then I found philosophy, and I fell in love with philosophy. I graduated with a BA in philosophy because I like to hear the story of humankind, what makes us who we are. I studied Kant. I even read Kant's Kritik der reinen Vernunft auf Deutsch. Yes. I can't speak, but I could read it. That's crazy then. What was really crazy is when I graduated from college, I was offered to position of a student at the Free University of Amsterdam for a PhD program. They approached me, and I said, how many PhD graduates are getting jobs these days? 2%. So I thought, I know, I'll take the next best alternative. I'll go to a Christian seminary and become a preacher. And I guess underneath it all, I wanted to tell stories, and I got to do that every Sunday for 25 years. And I soothed them so that a lot of them fell asleep. Very soothing. You guys still awake? 5 years ago, I changed tracks still with my ordination. I had church in Western Illinois. I had a church in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, polka capital of North America. And I had a church here by UCCS campus for 13 years. And now I'm a chaplain. And I love the chaplaincy. People say, are you crazy? Why do you do that? Because I love their stories. I sat with a woman this very afternoon who had her book that was published just for the family. You can do these real cheap publishing things. And she did that after a family reunion, and she showed me, and she told me the pictures of this guy and that guy. And after an hour and 15 minutes, it felt like 5 minutes. I went, I don't want to leave. I want to keep hearing. It's that yearning to hear. The other part I found is some really interesting stories in hospice, like people who die and they come back 3 days later at the foot of the bed. I get that routinely. And Dr. Leister and I, a good friend, we go around the country and we speak to various medical conferences about consciousness and some of the experiences. We do it from an experiential but as well as a scientific point of view. Now, I got about 45 patients, and about 15 to 20 of them normally have fairly severe dementia. Some of them can't say hardly a word. Well, I was down in Santa Fe doing a conference. It's called Creativity and Madness. And in some medical conferences, doctors actually, with a title like that, they actually get continuing ed credits, which is amazing. But it was a doctor, Dr. Barry Panter said, I find medical conferences, okay, gotta keep the language clean, really boring. I don't? He'll just edit it out? Sorry. You unleash me. You told me Jonathan Winters died today, so I had to. Anyway, I'm at this conference. A good response. I think I'm the only chaplain who ever speaks down there. They let me come back every year now. And the great part is I can stay there all week and listen to some great presentations, like the psychosis of Rodin, and the way he loved these younger women. It was fascinating. Yeah, it was. And I heard a doctor, Louis Mel's Madrona. He's the founder of the Coyote Project in New Mexico. He's a Native American by background, but he went to Stanford to get his doctorate. He got his MD from Stanford Medical School. And he had a presentation where he was talking about how he combines both the traditional medicine and our medicine, and how story is such an important part of traditional medicine. He says one of the problems in America is that we no longer have story. And he had neural scans. Everyone at these medical conferences shows neural scans. And there's always a battle on the one side of the room to the other. What good are neural scans? Well, I found this one really interesting. He had taken neural scans, taken people in an MRI machine who were listening to stories, and the results were staggering. He showed in them the brain listening to a story is more at rest than any other activity. More than sleep, it uses less glucose, it uses less oxygen, fewer calories. It is the default mode of the brain. Usually we're going through our whole lives with all kinds of things floating around. I got to solve this, got to go there. And doggone, we live in a city like this with bad parking lots. And, you're just always problem solving. But then when we stop, it should go back to storytelling. He said we evolved to process life through storytelling. Yeah, those guys in France are going to discover that after spending $1 billion. They are. But my lights were going on. You ever see the light bulb right over somebody's head? This was one of those that advertised car dealerships. I got these dementia patients. I wonder if I can take them who have limited thinking, limited memory, and tell them a story and just see what happens. I came back, met some of my patients. I had especially one person in mind. I thought I would experiment. Didn't seem like it was unethical. I ran it past those authorities at my hospice. And they were great with it, say, go try it. It can't hurt anybody. Tell them a story. So I took this dear Catholic woman. The first time I took a story from her Catholic tradition about the lost sheep. There were 100 sheep, one got lost. And the shepherd went and found it. She kind of smiled at me afterwards. I thought, wow, she responded. But my intuition said there's more. Next week, I came back to her and I told her a story about a caterpillar. I was looking at her in her bed and she has said dementia and she was so contractured that she always reminded me of somebody in a cocoon. People fed her, changed her, bathed her, dressed her. She was stuck. So I told her the story of a caterpillar, not those ugly, mushy ones on the tomato plants, but those really pretty ones with the stripes and, look like they went to Gap to get their, those ones. And I told her that story, and she said, thank you. That 3 months I hadn't heard anything from her, but I said, I got a feeling I'm still not there. So I went back to my notebook I got from when I would go fishing with an old man who was born behind Pikes Peak. He was an old cowboy. And I took one of his stories. Now, this is a story in a storytelling, okay? I'll tell you this story. His name is Wilson. He's about 98 years old now, and his parents homesteaded behind Pikes Peak, so he was born in the cabin that was cut down, or built from the trees that were cut down, and this guy knows how to ride a horse. He still does. He knows how to ride a horse so well. He probably learned to ride a horse about the same day he learned to walk. And he rode his horse to school every day. He would take it 3 miles down the canyon along Beaver Creek, and then 3 miles back up until the older boys burned that one room schoolhouse down. Then he had to ride 15 miles up to Victor every day. Boy, he was good at riding horse. By the time he was a teenager, he was one with the horse in a way that's beyond Zen. Well, a local rancher, the rancher was from Gillette, where that highway, you go up and go right into Cripple Creek and go left straight. That rancher offered him a summer job. He said, Wilson, I hear you're really good with handling horses and cattle. Would you like to work for me for this summer? And Lewis said, I'd love to. That way I don't have to, work for my dad for free or you for money. Duh, So boss said, Lewis, look at this ranch. You may ride any horse on this ranch. And I want you to take care of the cow, but you may ride any horse on this ranch except that black mare. She's dangerous. We have not been able to break this horse. We're afraid she could kill somebody. If I find you trying to ride that horse, that day will be the last day you work for me. I'll fire you. You understand? Lewis said, yes, sir. Got it. Every day, then Lewis would pack his lunch, get up there at the crack of dawn, and he'd show up and work. It wasn't really work. It was play, and he got paid for it. But about 3 weeks after he started, the boss said, I have to go down to Colorado Springs and do some banking. You'll be working the ranch by yourself. My family's up here, but you can handle it. I said, okay. The guy leaves, and out from the ranch house comes the rancher's daughter. Big, green eyes, beautiful red hair, very sinewy body, and started fluttering her eyebrows, eyelids. Lewis, I hear nobody can ride that horse. 3 seconds later, the saddle was on that horse, and 3 seconds after that, he was back on the ground. And he said he had a bloody nose he was bucked so hard. He gets himself off, and he says, man, am I lucky I didn't get killed. That horse is going to kill somebody. Next morning, he shows up at work, and there on the front post is his tack, his saddle, his rope, and there's the boss. Wilson, did you try to ride that horse? Yeah. Get out of here, you're fired. That's the end of my story. But that left enough open. That woman started talking. Her daughter was with me. She said, thank you for that story. Oh, hi, Patricia. I made that name up, got a HIPAA laws, But didn't you like that story? The daughter is just tearing down. There's something about the power of a story like that was healing her. And I started to tell stories to a few of my other dementia patients. One was, she just turned 100, and she's going to outlive me, I think. But she always says what I call popcorn thinking. Her thoughts are all over the place, and she can be in 4 decades at one time in her memory. And I love this woman. She always grabs my hand and kisses it. And she's just sweet, and she's cool. She stopped and listened with her eyes completely on me throughout the whole story. And when I finished, she started laughing, and then she told me the whole story back, but then started adding contours from her own life. And it was beautiful. It was linear. I had a nurse, had been her nurse for 5 years, or 4.5 years at that point. And she said, I've never seen her like this. She's normal today. Power stories. I found that so fascinating. I started to do more research. I wanted to find more stories, and I went online, and I discovered Princeton University. It's been doing a lot of work with their psych department, their psych studies. Tripped upon the work of a man named Uri Hassan and his group. And they've been doing psych studies using, again, neural scans of people doing normal things. Usually they take neural scans of schizophrenics and all. Everybody's screwed up, and they take the pictures of them. But they finally decided, maybe we'll take the neural scans of normal people doing normal things like listening to music. And they found some amazing results when people were listening to stories. They took the neural scan of a person telling the story and the people listening. When you tell a story like I am now, I've got a certain brain pattern working, and it's like a fingerprint. It's very unique. Except for this one gets duplicated in every person listening. My brain right now is being duplicated in you folks. And that's why you get really deliberate as you tell the story. And I try to put energy into it because I believe there is that electrical energy between that is measurable. As one of my good friends, one of my PhD physicist friends, went out and bought an oscilloscope for Christmas. Cool. Well, I know I wanted skis. He gets an oscilloscope, but I don't need a ski, but yeah, but he wants to measure all this, what goes on. Well, Pikes Peak Hospice has gotten pretty excited about it too, because we're starting to see there's good results of helping people at the end of life to be able to process, to have some communication with their family before they go when they have some dementia. And I'm having a gas doing that. I was over at Sharon's a week ago, and we started to say, why is it Americans kind of gotten away from stories? Because I was realizing when I tell a story, it's something that is so much a part of us. We're not human without stories. I thought maybe television has something to do with it because it's one-dimensional, somebody's talking to you. I also think Americans are so lazy we don't listen. We don't have time to listen. I think by trait I am a listener, and it frustrates me when I'm with somebody and they dominate 90% of the conversation. I wanted to say afterwards, did you even hear anything I said? Because you're so busy telling your story, but you're not listening to story. Because storytelling is two-directional. If you're only all on one side, it doesn't work. It wouldn't work tonight if all of you were gone. Although the way the lights are, it almost looks that way. And I was reminded of a time my wife's uncle, he's a PhD in philosophy. He got the PhD and I got the MDiv. But he was on a plane flight one day, and next to him was Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, the founder of Studies of Bereavement. And he said, when I started, go, oh good, I'm going to hear so many good things from this person. I'm so humbled. He said like a kid at a baseball game, and the star comes up and wants to sign his autograph. Oh, what's he going to tell me? What's she going to tell me? She said at the end of a 2-hour flight that seemed like 2 minutes, I realized she had said very little, but she was the best listener I had ever heard, I've ever experienced. I felt like after she was done listening to me and guiding me, my story was told. And she was blessed, and I was too. So, all right, that's it.